Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this English lesson series, I will tell you most of the common silent letters and combinations that cause difficulties for English learners with rules and examples and which will help you understand when to use some silent letters. But remember, there are usually some exceptions. What are silent letters called? Silent letters are just called silent letters. In some slang terms, they are also called dummy letters. There's no linguistic or phonetic name for silent letters except silent letters. Silent letters are ones that you don't pronounce when saying a word. They are written down, but you don't say them out loud. There are numerous words with silent letters in the English language. Let's first go over the letters that are rarely, if ever, silent. These are F, Q, R, V, and Y. And in British English, there can be some silent R's, but that's a matter of dialect. So, if there are 5 letters that are not silent, then we can say that there are 21 silent letters in English. So, without any further delay, let's look at the 10 words with silent letters in English with rules and examples. Let's look at the first word with silent GH. Rule number 1. GH is not pronounced when it comes after a vowel. Examples: thought, draught, through, thorough, borrow, daughter, light, might, sight, right, fight, wait, and wait. Now let's look at the exceptions. Doghouse, foghorn, big head. Now as you can see, the exceptions are generally compound words. That is, words that have been formed by combining two complete words. Now let's look at the examples of the silent word GH. She thought that nothing would be the same again. Crops have failed because of drought. The light of the sun. Her husband was in the doghouse for leaving her to cope on her own. Rule number 2. GH is sometimes pronounced like F. Let's look at the examples. Rough, tough, laugh, enough, cuff, cloud. Now let's look at the exceptions. So exceptions are the words which are from examples from rule number 1, which I've already told you. Now let's look at the examples. Her skin felt dry and rough. Cry with one eye and laugh with the other. I have a lot of money and enough time to use it. So a root word is the original word in its root from without any prefixes or suffixes attached. For example, thought is the root word in thoughtful and the full is a suffix. So tough is the root word and ness is a suffix. Let's look at a second word with silent B. Rule number 1. B is not pronounced after M at the end of a word. Let's look at the examples. Dumb, limb, crumb, comb, bomb, thumb, climb, tomb. Now let's look at the example. I'm not dumb. I have to comb my hair. She held the coin carefully between finger and thumb. Rule number 2. B is usually not pronounced before T at the end of a root word. Let's look at the example. Depth, debtor, doubtful, doubt, subtle, subtleness, etc. Let's look at the example. He's trying to pay off gambling debts. It is doubtful that he will come. I doubt they are ready for it. A root word is the original word in its root form without any prefixes or suffixes attached. Example, doubt is the root word in doubtful and the full is a suffix. Subtle is the root word and ness is a suffix. Let's look at a third word with silent R. Let's look at the rule. In Standard British English as well as in Australian English, the R is silent if it is followed by a consonant if it is at the end of a word. Let's look at the examples. Folk, start, star, teacher. Let's look at the examples. She dropped a fork and stood. She had a great start to her dancing career. We saw countless bright stars tonight. Is Miss Natasha an English teacher? Let's look at a fourth word with silent C. Rule number 1. C is not pronounced in the combination SC. Let's look at the examples. Muscle, scissors, ascent, miscellaneous, fascinate, scenario. Now let's look at the exception words. Sclera, Asclepiad, sclerosis, muscovido, skeptic. Now let's look at the examples. He has really big muscles in his arms because he works out every day. She used scissors to cut off his shirt. The sky was sparkly enough to fascinate her. The man was a religious skeptic and had never considered attending church. Rule number 2. C is usually redundant before the letters K or Q. Let's look at the examples. acquaintance, acknowledge, acquiesce, and acquit. Let's look at the examples. They readily acknowledge their mistake. He was acquitted. I am delighted to make your acquaintance. Let's look at a fifth words with silent G. Rule. G is not often pronounced when it comes before N. Let's look at the examples. Champagne, foreign, sign, feign, design, align. Now let's look at the exception words. Magnet, igneous, cognitive, signature. Let's look at the examples with silent G. Tom speaks 2 foreign languages. They forced him to sign a confession. The graphic design is beautiful. Iron is attracted to a magnet. The text aligns with the bottom of the picture. You must put your signature on the check. Let's look at a sixth words with silent H. Rule number 1. H is not pronounced when it comes after W. Some speakers whisper the H before the W. Let's look at the examples. What, when, where, whether, why. Let's look at the examples with silent H. What are you doing? I came home when I heard the news. I visited my old neighborhood where I have the best memories. Rule number 2. H is not pronounced at the beginning of many words, and remember to use the article N with unvoiced H. Let's look at the examples. Our, honest, honor, higher. Let's look at the exception words. Hill, history, height, happy, hereditary. Plus most other words beginning with H that are not of French origin, and remember to use the article A with voiced H. Let's look at the examples. I believe my sister to be honest. It was a very important phase of history. She had a very happy childhood. Rule number 3. H is often not pronounced when it comes after C, G or R. Let's look at the example. Choir, chorus, ghastly, goal, august, echo, rhinoceros, rhythm, etc. Let's look at the examples. He'll become a part of the chorus and sing a song for his friends. The music echoed through the church. I can't dance to music without a good rhythm. The teacher was aghast at how many of her students failed this simple test. Let's look at a seventh words with silent N. Rule. N is not pronounced when it comes after M at the end of a word. Let's look at the examples. Autumn, hymn, column, solemn, etc. Let's look at the examples with silent N. The book is scheduled for publication in the autumn. What's a favorite hymn? They stopped dancing and he gazed down at her with a solemn expression. The article takes up 3 columns. Let's look at an eighth word with silent E. Rule. E is not pronounced at the end of words but instead elongates the sound of the vowel before it. Let's look at the examples. Hope, drive, gave, write, sight, grave, bite, hide, etc. Let's look at the exception words. Giraffe, brunette, cassette, gazelle. And you can see that how you may be able to spot a pattern in these words. They have similar combinations in the last syllable. This shows that the exceptions are generally words with unusual stress on the final syllable, but not always. One example would be the word minute as in the time measuring unit. Let's look at the examples with silent E. I hope your wish will come true. You must be careful when you drive a car. I gave him a ride in my car last night. The giraffe is characterized by its very long neck. The elegant brunette was thinner, longer and more sophisticated. I could no longer hide my fear. Let's look at a ninth word with silent K. Rule. K is not pronounced when it comes before N at the beginning of a word. Let's look at the examples. Knife, knee, know, knock, knowledge, need, etc. Let's look at the examples with silent K. He placed a knife at her neck. Natasha had a bandage round her knee. I better knock on his door. He demonstrated his knowledge of computers. She knows that many people will not believe her. Let's look at a 10th word with silent D. Rule number 1. D is not pronounced in the following common words. Let's look at the examples. Handkerchief, Wednesday, sandwich, handsome. Let's look at the example. She took out a handkerchief and began to cry. My birthday falls on a Wednesday this year. He's the most handsome man I've ever met. I made a chicken sandwich for myself. Rule number 2. D is also not pronounced in the combination DG. Let's look at the examples. Pledge, dodge, grudge, hedge, etc. Let's look at the examples. Take this gift as a pledge of our friendship. She dodged through the crowds as she hurried home. I don't grudge her the opportunity she has been given. Peter trimmed the hedge. So friends, I hope you enjoyed this English lesson series and learned a lot. So you can continue studying with me by subscribing to my channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to get the notification for my upcoming videos. Thank you for watching.